My parents didn't notice I moved out. Now they want me to be the family's backup plan. I'm the youngest of 5, and when I say youngest, I don't mean just by a little bit. There's like a 7-year gap between me and my next sibling. To be honest, it always felt like I was invisible growing up. My siblings all had their own stuff going on, and I guess my parents just assumed that because I wasn't sick or having mental health issues like the rest of them, I didn't need them. I'm not trying to be all woe is me or whatever, but it's the truth. The others were always in and out of hospitals, therapy, you name it. And me? I was just there. The glass child, they call it, right? You can see me, but you don't really notice me. I was fine with that for the most part. I spent a lot of time by myself, playing video games, reading, and keeping to myself. I had to learn to entertain myself because, well, no one else was really around to do it. It's not like I was expected to take care of my siblings, though. I've seen other people talk about how they had to sacrifice their childhoods to take care of their brothers or sisters, but that wasn't me. My parents handled all that, so credit where credit's due. But because I wasn't causing problems, because I wasn't in crisis mode like my siblings, I just kind of fell through the cracks. I didn't need help, so I didn't get any. I don't think my parents did it on purpose or anything. It's just that when you've got 4 kids who are constantly dealing with health stuff, the one who's healthy is kind of like an afterthought. They were always so busy with hospital visits, doctor's appointments, and school meetings for the others that I just became this kid who didn't cause trouble and didn't get attention. It's like I was invisible, but not in the tragic movie kind of way, just in a practical we've got our hands full kind of way. Anyway, I wasn't completely alone. When I was about 9, I made 2 friends, Sarah and Kelly, who were basically in the same boat. Their families weren't great either, and we kind of found each other in this unspoken way. We just clicked, you know? We understood what it was like to be ignored, to be left out, and that bonded us. Over time, they became more like my real family than my actual family ever did. We were inseparable all through school, and we stuck together even after high school ended. We went to college together, graduated together, and eventually moved to a new state together. It was like we built our own little family out of the scraps of what our real families couldn't give us. As for my parents, we didn't talk much once I left home. I guess that was to be expected since we never really talked when I was still living there either. My mom would text me now and then, mostly small talk stuff like, how's school? Or what are you doing for work? That kind of thing. Our relationship was super surface level, but honestly, that was an improvement from my teenage years. Back in high school, we barely spoke at all. So yeah, I didn't expect much from them, and I didn't ask for much either. What really made it clear how disconnected I was from them was this one phone call from my mom last year. It was a few days before Thanksgiving, and she called me out of nowhere. Now, we never call each other, so right off the bat, I knew something was up. The last time I had spoken to her on the phone was maybe a year before that, when she told me about the time and place of one of my sister's funerals. That's how little we talked. So anyway, she calls me and asks, what time are you coming for Thanksgiving? And I'm sitting there like, wait, what? Because I had no idea they were even planning anything for Thanksgiving. It wasn't like we had some big family tradition or whatever. In fact, in my whole life, I can remember maybe 3 times that they even tried to do Thanksgiving or Christmas. It just wasn't a thing in my family. I told her I already had plans. I was going on a ski trip with Sarah and Kelly, so it wasn't like I could just drop everything and come over, even if I wanted to. Plus, I live 2 states away, and I would have needed to book a plane ticket months ago if I was going to come. But she acted like I was just being difficult. Then she started guilt-tripping me, saying she was going to be all alone because my dad was going to spend the day visiting my brother in the facility he's in. He's like a 2-hour drive from them, so apparently my dad was going to be gone most of the day. I get it, I really do, but she gave me 3 days notice. 3 days. And I was supposed to just magically show up and make her feel better? I told her I couldn't come, and she got mad, saying I didn't care about the family or some crap like that. I repeated that I already had plans, and she hung up on me. After the call, I sat there for a bit, feeling guilty but also kind of pissed. Like, I hadn't heard from them in forever, and now all of a sudden, I'm the bad guy for not coming home for Thanksgiving? I scrolled through our old texts just to make sure I hadn't missed anything. But nope. Nothing about Thanksgiving, nothing about wanting to see me. She just sprung it on me last minute, like I was supposed to drop everything and be there. I ended up sending her a text later that night, saying that I had a ski trip booked for Christmas and wouldn't be able to come for that either, but I'd love to catch up with her and Dad after the new year. You know, trying to be nice about it. She didn't reply. A few days after that whole Thanksgiving mess, I was still trying to shake off the weird feeling. You know, when something just nags at you and you can't quite figure out why. That's how I felt about the way my mom had tried to make me feel bad for not coming home. Like, she calls me out of nowhere, guilt trips me for not being there, but at the same time, she never actually told me they were doing Thanksgiving. It's like they expected me to be a mind reader or something. But anyway, I had pretty much moved on by then. I was getting ready for my ski trip with Sarah and Kelly. We'd been planning it for months, and I was super excited. The three of us hadn't had a proper vacation in forever, so we were looking forward to just hanging out and relaxing. Then, out of nowhere, I get this text from my dad. Now, my dad almost never texts me, so I figured it was going to be important. But instead of something reasonable, he hits me with, "If you don't come home for Christmas, I'm stopping your college payments." First, I actually laughed. Like, what? I graduated 3 years ago. What payments? It was so out of left field. I had to read it twice to make sure I wasn't missing something. I thought maybe he was confused or talking about someone else, so I sent him a text back reminding him that I had already graduated, and if he thought he was still paying for my college, then he needed to check his bank account because someone was scamming him. I thought that would be the end of it. Honestly, I figured he'd feel stupid once he realized I wasn't in school anymore. But no. A few hours later, I get another text from him, this time saying that I was being selfish and ungrateful. He threw in a bunch of stuff about how they'd sacrificed so much for me and my siblings, and how I didn't appreciate any of it. Okay, first of all, I never asked for anything from them. Second, I didn't even know they were paying for my college because my grandma was the one who covered it. She told me straight up that she didn't want my parents messing with my education, so she took care of everything herself. So yeah, I had no idea what my dad was even talking about. At this point, I was kind of mad. Like, I get it if they're stressed out with my siblings and all, but guilt-tripping me about stuff they didn't even do? That's a whole new level. I texted back, being as polite as I could manage, and said something like, "I'm sorry you feel that way, but Grandma paid for my college. I'm happy to catch up after the holidays. But I already have plans." I thought that would shut it down, but nope. My dad decides to go full drama mode and starts texting me about how I've abandoned the family, how I'm turning my back on them, and that he's done helping me out if I won't make an effort. By this point, I'm just staring at my phone like, what is happening? Abandon the family? I've been living on my own for years, and they barely even noticed. And now, all of a sudden, because I won't drop my life and rush back for Christmas, I'm the bad guy? I wanted to just ignore it, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. The more I thought, the more pissed off I got. It's like they hadn't spoken to me in months, hadn't bothered to check in or ask how I was doing. But the second they needed something, it was my responsibility to make everything better. I was supposed to be their backup plan or something. So I called Sarah and Kelly to vent. They both said the same thing, that it sounded like my parents were just using me as a guilt trip. Sarah said that they probably wanted me back home for Christmas so they wouldn't feel bad about themselves, not because they actually wanted to see me. Kelly, as usual, didn't hold back and said straight up, "Screw them. You don't owe them anything." I decided to sleep on it and cool off before responding again. But as I was lying there, my phone buzzes again. It's my dad. This time, the text is short and cold. "If you don't come home, don't bother coming back at all." I read that, and honestly, I just felt numb. Like, how did we get here? How did we go from not talking for months to basically disowning me because I wasn't coming for Christmas? It didn't even feel real. I stared at the message for a long time, and part of me wanted to fire back and say something nasty. I wanted to call them out on all the times they ignored me, on all the times I felt like I didn't even exist in that house. But instead, I just didn't respond. I put my phone down, rolled over, and tried to sleep. I didn't want to get dragged into some big family drama right before the holidays. I didn't want to deal with the guilt trips, the accusations, or whatever other crap they were going to throw at me. So I just left it. The next day, I woke up to more texts. This time from my mom. She didn't say much, just that they were disappointed in me, that they didn't understand why I was being so distant, and that they hoped I'd change my mind. I couldn't help but laugh a little because distant didn't even begin to cover it. I'd been distant my whole life, but they were just now noticing? I ignored the texts again and focused on getting ready for the ski trip. Sarah and Kelly were pumped, and honestly, I was too. It felt like the perfect escape from all the family nonsense. We hit the road the next day, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't think about my parents. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel sad. I just felt free. But, of course, things couldn't stay peaceful forever. Just when I thought I could move past it, I got another message from my mom. This time right in the middle of the trip. She wasn't giving up. She said that if I didn't come home soon, they'd have to start making decisions about the future without me. Decisions that I wouldn't like. That's when it clicked. They were planning something bigger than just Christmas. Maybe they were talking about one of my brothers or something with the house. I didn't know what, But suddenly, it made sense why they were pushing so hard. They didn't want me around just for the holidays. They wanted me back in the fold for some bigger reason. And honestly, that realization was like a punch in the gut. All this time, I thought they were just being clingy or feeling lonely. But it was never about me, not really. It was about what they could get from me. I was done. After that whole mess with my parents trying to guilt-trip me, I thought things would just die down. I ignored their texts, went on the ski trip, and tried to focus on the fact that I had my own life, my own plans, and I wasn't going to let them drag me back into their world of guilt and expectations. But, of course, it wasn't that simple. When I got back home, I was getting settled into my usual routine when I got a message from my older brother, John. John was the one sibling I thought might understand me a little. He wasn't as sick as my other brothers, so I always figured we could have had something more. But he was always too wrapped up in his own life. So, seeing his name pop up on my phone surprised me. His message was simple. "Hey, we need to talk." When I called him back, he dropped the bomb. "Mom and Dad have been talking about making you the legal guardian for one of the boys when they're gone." I swear, I almost dropped the phone. Was this some kind of joke? Like, after all these years of barely being in my life, now they're just going to dump this responsibility on me? What the hell are you talking about? I finally managed to ask. I didn't hold back. "I'm not doing it," I said. "I'm not going to be the one to clean up their mess. They didn't care about me when I was a kid, and they sure as hell don't get to come to me now just because it's convenient." John was silent for a second, then said, "I get it. I do. But you're still part of the family." That word, family, made me want to scream. Sure, I was part of the family, but only when it was convenient for them. "Tell them I'm not interested," I said, and hung up. A few weeks later, my mom showed up at my door. She tried to guilt-trip me again, pulling the "your father is dying" card, but I wasn't buying it. "I'm sorry," I said, keeping my voice steady, "but this isn't my problem. You made your choices. Now you have to deal with them." After she left, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Sadness, relief, and, most of all, freedom. I wasn't going to be their backup plan anymore. I focused on my life, my friends, and my future. For the first time, I felt truly free.